Hello and welcome back to another episode of Captain Kirk Productions. I'm Kirk, and we are still with Dr. Burba and Drake. And today, we have 6 comics that I brought to the Cincinnati Comic Convention to have signed by legendary artist Neal Adams. So, I sent these books off to get pressed and cleaned, which basically means that someone looks them over and I'm not quite sure honestly how they do it, but they apply heat somehow and kind of smooth rough edges or like divots you have in the book, and they dry clean the book somehow and get off the fingerprints and all these different things. So they came back looking amazing. So we're going to look at the different covers and talk about Neal Adams and why he's cool and why he's a legend in the business. So
I want to stop you here, though.
Go ahead.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, 2 videos ago, you did your unboxing.
Mhm.
You had the Jason
Momoa.
Momoa, okay. And you did not press those previously to having him sign. Is that correct?
That is not correct.
Okay, so those were pressed.
Those were pressed and cleaned. So basically, the reason they weren't pressed and cleaned beforehand is because they were going to have to be sent off to CBCS to be authenticated. So basically, I sent them off in a bundle, and I made a note to the person that was cleaning them that I wanted these sent to CBCS, and I wanted the grade or the signature authenticated. So he did. So he cleaned them and then sent them off after the fact.
With the signature on there, though.
Yes.
And so it did not degrade the signature
No.
by getting them pressed.
No.
Interesting.
It is very interesting. I'd kind of like to go and see like how this is done at some point, because it's pretty amazing kind of how these can look. So let's get into the first.
I'd like to stop you right there.
Okay, sure.
So I'm interested in how you're actually going to have Neal Adams sign these comics, knowing that they are cleaned, sealed, and bagged.
Okay, so there's a couple ways. So I could either take each of them out and kind of risk them getting damaged, which I don't really want to do. So we can make what's called a signature window within the industry, where you cut out a small rectangular incision in your bag, and then you place tape around the outside so that the artists can find where you made your incision, and they will sign in that set spot. So basically you can choose where you want them to sign your book. Not everyone does this. This is just what I chose to do for my first time. So we'll see how it goes. But anyway, let's get into the first book. So this right here is Batman 232. Let's get a look at that. So unfortunately you can't see the cover that great because I put a very large chunk for the tape and everything. But you can kind of see in the middle here, this is the first appearance of Ra's al Ghul. And Neal Adams is the person who created the character of Ra's al Ghul. And I was talking to Dr. Burba on the way here to Cincinnati. In Batman Begins, they obviously used Ra's al Ghul as kind of the main villain, and Neal Adams received a check for $100,000 for the use of that character in the movie. So that's the gift that keeps on giving. So unfortunately you can't see all of the cover, but it's kind of a cool green cover, and I don't know, what are your impressions? Now, before you give me your impressions, let's talk about your impressions of the book itself. Do you see any flaws? How do the corners look?
Grade this.
Yeah.
Please.
What is your naked eye would grade this?
It looks actually in great condition. The pages do not look tarnished in any way from this first cover, and the colors look outstanding. I would be surprised if it's graded any lower than a 9.1.
Okay, so we'll say a 9.2.
You could say that.
Okay.
But I would also say that I'm a little confused of who's firing the gun in this.
Well, it might be something that you have to read and find out for yourself, but we're not going to do
Let's
that.
open that up.
Let's
read this.
That's a bad idea. Well, actually, I have 2 other copies of this, so maybe we can open it at some point in a future video.
Okay.
All right, so there's that.
Oh, wait,
With
we
Dr.
didn't get my grading.
Dr. Burba can
Yeah.
take a look at it.
Okay. I do see some creasing here on the spine.
Let's have a look at that.
Wait.
Okay, go ahead.
wait.
Continue your evaluation.
Yeah, maybe a little fold over on this front edge. Looks like this cover was a little bit It looks like it's been shifted slightly. If you look down here at the bottom, you can see it's folded over. At the top, you can start to see some pages underneath. I'm not quite too impressed by that. The colors do seem pretty vibrant. Robin does look very scared and terrified, like, oh, I just got shot.
That is very interesting artwork. The face of Ra's al Ghul itself, which you can't see off, is very interesting.
So I'll give this a
9.8.
an 8.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'll give this an 8.
Wow. All right. Let's so.
See, look right there where the staple is.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what it comes back.
I'll just
Let's write this
say
down.
that
Alright.
you know what? In the second look, there is some damage to the top right corner. It looks like someone bit it with a vampire teeth.
Well, funny you should mention that because Neal Adams actually made the cover for Vampire #1, I believe. No, I'm sorry, Dracula #1.
That's what I was thinking.
So it's very maybe perhaps that's kind of a prequel to that comic itself. So let's move on.
I think we should one more thing. Just one more thing.
One more
Seriously.
thing.
So Kirk sent Drake and I pictures of these windows, as he so calls them. And I was very confused about this taping. And so I want the audience to be able to get the look. So the tape's not actually touching the book at all.
Here.
You can still see the plastic edge and then tape.
Yeah.
And then the book.
Look.
So the book has not been taped on.
No.
That's what I was afraid of.
I understand your fears.
But why is the tape all ripped up? Why couldn't you use
He used
scissors?
his teeth or his feet.
Did
to
you
rip the tape.
Did you use
Well,
your teeth?
again, perhaps this was a vampire type of tear job, but here's the thing: is my artistic ability is about a -12, so that's just kind of how it turned out. So
I grade your tape ripping abilities at
like a 0.5 probably.
0.5.
Okay.
It's low.
Okay, that's great. Let's move on to the next book. All right, this is. Oh, this is probably my personal favorite cover. This is
Ever?
maybe not ever.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to get back to you on that. But this is Batman 251, and this is just a very classic Joker cover, as you can see here. Very, very interesting. A lot going on here. Very cool animation going on. So, what are your impressions? Do you feel this is a 9.8, obviously? So.
Yeah, I do like how white the card is. You can also see the contrast in the white with the Joker's face.
Now, fun fact about this particular comic. This is one of 6 copies that I own. And they aren't necessarily all in this condition. I'd say probably 4 of them are in very, very good condition. And this comic itself is, if it's a 9 or over, it's worth over $1,000. The comic that we just saw, I don't know if it's quite to the $1,000 level, but it's definitely up there because it's the first appearance of a villain.
So I do fear that your window that you've made is rather thin. And I know if I'd be signing a bunch of comics over and over all day at a Comic-Con in Cincinnati, per se, I would be pretty flowy. Do you have any concerns with how thin your window? Because I feel like if he loops, it may be on the tape, which would not be on the comic itself.
Well, like we kind of talked about earlier, not necessarily this video, just kind of when we were out being ridiculous. We ate tacos. I looked up some other signatures he did on other books, and what I found is that he kind of signs right above this red kind of part right here on the cover, right above this, but not even quite touching like the card here. So it kind of usually starts out over here and kind of goes this way. So I don't really feel like it's going to be too thin, personally. But he can make adjustments. I mean, he signs a bajillion comics, so no big deal.
I'm interested that there's no explanation points anywhere on this front comic. I mean, there's a lot of ha-has. Wouldn't you think there would be a ha-ha-ha?
That's a very good point.
You know what? I will. Maybe we can ask him about that tomorrow.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So please file that away.
Okay.
All right. Now next we have. This is the first appearance of the Man-Bat. This is Detective Comics 400. So most of the comic is covered by tape. So when we do our unboxing video, we can kind of show that, kind of get a cool look to it. But What are your impressions?
Man-Bat looks really blue since he's covered with tape.
Mm.
It does look like Batman has a mustache.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of interesting.
Sounds right.
I do like how it has Robin and Batgirl at the top.
Mm-hmm. This is a 9.8, would you say?
It's not as easy to see the contrasts of whites, which I feel like that's something they would look at.
Mm-hmm.
The spine does look to be in pretty good shape. And I don't see any folding, so
Now,
I'll
you
give that
mentioned,
a 7.5.
You mentioned the spine. So, what can happen with comics and obviously other books is they can get what's called spine roll. That's where the comic kind of folds up or down, up or down. The dog is good. And that's where pressing will come in, and pressing will just take care of that and flatten it out. So these have all been, I don't know if they had spine roll before, but that's kind of a common thing in the comics that obviously, is not going to be the case because they've all been pressed and clean and they look amazing. So, Drake, do you have anything to add to this comic?
You know, I like how pink Robin's legs are.
Mhm.
They really shine
They're very
in
nice.
this cover, so
Mhm.
that's nice to see.
That is nice.
The Gotham Bridge
Mm.
stands out, and well, I'm not sure what this villain is.
Well,
He
that is
doesn't-
the Man-Bat, as you can see in these
That's
large
the
red
man
letters.
bat.
So, Man-Bat is basically just a man
That turns
Change-
into a bat.
that, yeah,
Similar
periodically.
to Batman
But not that
himself,
way.
but not in that way.
Not that way.
Batman is, or Man-Bat is actually very
Is it-
poor.
But Batman is rich.
Yes.
It's like
And
the opposite.
Man-Bat has superpowers, whereas
Batman
Batman is not a
doesn't.
superhero.
Right.
He's just a hero.
And Batman lives in a mansion,
Yeah.
and Man-Bat
Cave.
lives in a cave.
Yeah. Or in a
That
van.
makes- In a van.
Down by
Down
the
by the
river,
river.
basically.
Ah.
So, all right. So,
And that's what's called a challenge in
Yeah.
Man-Bat.
And I do have a question.
go ahead. Sure.
So, in your previous unboxing video,
Mhm.
2 episodes ago,
That was 2.
that was a good one. A good episode that everyone should check out if they haven't seen
Great,
it.
check that out. Add some comments.
You
in
had
the box
Jason
below.
Momoa sign
Mhm.
the comic,
Mhm.
and you shipped it out to be authenticated.
Mhm.
Why didn't you just get it authenticated at the Comic Con?
Yeah.
Well,
Why didn't you?
as previously stated, neither CGC or CBS was at this particular event, which was very disheartening.
Well,
So, fortunately for us, tomorrow CGC will be at this event. So, I will get a member of their team and I will say, hey, I'm going to have Neal Adams sign these books. I need you to authenticate them and witness it. And they will witness it and they will grade them and they will send them back to me. So, it's going to be a good day.
so you actually leave your comic with them.
They will be left with them in their care, and they will be shipped back with a yellow label because they witnessed a signature.
Do you have any kind of insurance policy that protects you from any kind of incident?
I believe you can purchase insurance like on them shipping the book back to you. I'm not 100% certain because I've only shipped things to them through people, like through a middleman per se, because the person that presses and cleans my books sends them off to the companies for me, like he does all of that. So this will be the first time I've really had any face-to-face interaction with this company. So we'll see how it goes. So let's move on to the next book. So I can already tell I had a lot of challenges with this book. As you can see, I kind of cut through the both ends of the plastic.
How did you do that?
Oh, I don't really want to talk about it. I just want to point that out. So here we go.
2.5.
Oh gosh. So anyway, this is a very, very interesting cover. Now, as you can see, it was kind of rough. But regardless, I have a nice little spot here. So here's what happened. So I was cutting through, and obviously I was trying to slide the book back in, but this was kind of staying together, so like it would get caught. And I'm trying to get it in without ripping anything, and it's getting kind of frustrating. So I finally had to say screw it, and I like kind of rip off like the end here of the plastic. So obviously it's open, but still secure.
Are you cutting these windows with the comics in the wrapper
Of
or
course
out
not.
of it?
Not at all. So basically what I would do is I would carefully slide them out. Well, first I would put down the tape so I knew where to cut. Then I would carefully slide them out, and then I
This
would
makes
cut.
so much more sense now.
Are you using a machete?
Okay.
How is this happening?
I was using a box cutter, and it's very hard to.
But the doll end
The
instead of
doll,
a shark.
Yeah, pretty
makes
much.
sense.
So, anyhow, so no, the book is definitely not in here. That would be absolutely insane. So let's talk about this color. This is Batman 227. Now, what's interesting about this book is this actually pays homage or homage, however you'd like to say it, to Detective Comics 27, which is the first ever appearance of Batman in a comic. So if you Google Detective Comics 27, you'll kind of see similarities where Batman's kind of in the background looking over the scene. So this is very interesting, a very sought after book. So I want to talk about something really quick here. This has some orange on the top here, as you can see.
I
Now,
see the orange.
I believe in the industry this is what's called overspray. Now, back in the day, what would happen is companies would spray with spray paint the top of the books, and it kind of told, I believe, the shippers like where the certain books were going. So I have quite a few books that have this, so I'm not quite sure how this will affect the grade. Because in our previous video, the Showcase 30 had overspray on the top, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I thought the grade was going to be lower, and it ended up being higher. So I don't know if it's something where they just like, they don't really count it just because it was kind of out of your control, kind of something that they just did back in the day. So I have a couple other books in the stack that are like that, so I'm very interested to see kind of how that comes back. But
I
let's
need
take a look.
I
Yeah.
need a
Go
chance.
ahead, take a
Apparently
look.
our opinion doesn't matter in this
no,
one.
yeah. You know, it's interesting to me. What year was this coined?
I believe probably like the late 60s.
Late
So we'll say
60s.
68 or 69.
So this is, if you can't see, a 15-cent comic book.
Mhm.
Back in the day, could have also bought you a turkey,
Car.
a car. So this is very interesting. It actually reminds me of the Sherlock Holmes novel,
Ooh.
Sir Conan Doyle's.
Hunt of the Baskervilles?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct, because of the hounds in the bottom left-hand corner.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's a.
Now this, because of the homage that it pays to the original Batman comic, it is also a sought-after book, so this is probably in the $500 to $1,000 range as far as market. So, what's your thoughts, Dr. Burbo?
Looks pretty good.
Okay.
I like the contrasting colors.
I think it's just a very cool cover with kind of him. The background is kind of like a ghostly type figure, just kind of looking over things. But
Yeah, or just a creepy man.
okay,
staring
creepy
at
man,
people.
or that, either one. So
That
let's
works.
let's talk about Neal Adams for a minute. So with Batman, kind of back in the day, the golden age of Batman, the very early comics, they were kind of more like detective focused, very just kind of maybe what you'd say more Sherlock Holmes-y kind of thing.
Mhm.
Then they kind of moved to the kind of campy versions, kind of like the old 60s Batman TV show, just very kind of goofy.
Mhm.
And then Neal Adams kind of took over and was like, Batman is way cooler when
Let's
he's...
take this from Bat Boy to Batman.
Exactly.
Batman.
Exactly. And interesting enough, he was in his own title, Batman obviously, and then the Detective Comics series. And DC Comics actually were considering canceling the Detective Comics series because sales were so low, because Batman was just kind of like a goofy character. And he came in and was like, let's make him more serious, make this cooler. And so
Give him a
obviously,
deeper voice.
deeper voice, so
Mhm.
sales kind of went through the roof. And obviously these are amazing covers and they've withstood the test of time. So now Detective Comics is coming up on their 1,000th issue. So could you imagine if they canceled it back in the day at like $350, $380 or something like that? They would have missed out on a crap ton of revenue. So, alright, let's move on to the next book.